Merry Christmas, every single one of you. On today's video, we've got the Stormblood MSQ. I'm like halfway through this thing, and it is so strange that I really want to talk to you about it. I have COVID, which means I don't feel great, and I've been living in this for like 5 days, and I've got another 5 days before I can leave this room. I'm going to give away a £2,500 laptop to one of you guys. I am running one of the biggest New Year's Eve Final Fantasy XIV parties ever done, so that you guys can have something to do while everything's getting shut down again. And I think that's it. No, and we're moving. A lot happens when you don't post for a week. Yes, before we get into Stormblood, we are moving. We have an office, finally, after all these years of waiting and biding time in order to move up to the next level. I have an incredibly growing family, and I have, over the years, actually been reduced so much in what content I can make, other than just sitting in front of a camera and talking, and I have bigger aspirations than that. I now have a team, thanks to you guys, of 5 people, and we're going to be coming together in order to work in a brand new office. We'll have that for you in the, hopefully it's going to be New Year's, if I'm well and not infectious anymore, in order to go show the office. We did do a preview on the Twitch stream, but I want a proper video for you guys. Now, we are getting so much help with this, which is why we've signed some deals recently. One of them was with Scan. You might remember during the subathon, this is Scan Computers UK, they actually provided this for us because our laptop broke, which meant we couldn't do some of the cool stuff we wanted to do on the subathon without a laptop. We needed it. And the next day they provided this Razer Blade 2021 for us. And thankfully that experience and that relationship has grown to the point where we're now getting stuff in order to give away to you guys, and they're going to be helping us with furnishing our office. They are building us custom PCs designed around the things I like, and I have no idea what they look like. My team is working on it to make them spectacular. Cannot wait to see what they come up with for that in order to provide all the power and stuff we need for creating content over our brand new offices. But as in association with that, they're going to give us another one of these. Not only that, it's going to be better than this one. This is a Razer Blade 2021. If you're in the UK, this one is UK only. We are getting stuff for everybody else, but you need to see the details down below because this thing is more powerful than my gaming PC. I'm not even joking. We ran the entire stream off this thing the other day, and the one you're getting is better than this one. It is better than this one. So massive thanks to Scan for supporting us with the Razer stuff. They're also providing the Razer monitors that we're going to be showing you soon that are going to be in the office. It's a really good time. In terms of New Year's Eve though, we are running the biggest event we can for Final Fantasy XIV because so many people cannot go out, cannot enjoy themselves like they would already do at New Year's Eve. So we'll be doing something massive. They're going to be a 15-hour long party. It's going to be on Chaos and on Light. I'm going to be there. They've got 10 DJs lined up, and if you saw our last party, you know how these things go. With so many people coming, just having the best time in a safe place, enjoying themselves, and generally just having a blast. So that will be live streamed, obviously. We'll be having a great time. If you can make it, that would be cool. In terms of my COVID, I have the Delta variant. I'm running on an old patch. It sucks. I don't feel great, but whatever. It's as Operation Don't Infect the rest of the family. They don't have it. I must have caught it on my birthday. Woe betide me actually leaving the house at some point for my birthday and ended up that way. But having said all that, I want to talk about Stormblood MSQ. So let's do that. So let's jump into Stormblood, that has introduced some of the most fantastic characters I've seen yet in Final Fantasy XIV, particularly Xenos. Let's talk about Xenos straight off the bat here, because I really kind of like where they're going with this character. I'm about halfway through the MSQ talking about this, which is up until, say, let's say Doma Castle, for those of you who understand it. But Xenos was a character that initially I thought, okay, this is just another big bad. He's Badman, which we always have. But I genuinely do like that we have this extraordinarily powerful character. Voice acting is absolutely on point with this guy. He's very creepy. He's very bored because instead of a character who just hungers for power, he already has power. I like that. He has power. He's got that, and he actually only has power as a means to a different end. He gained power just so he can find worthy sport, and you are obviously going to be that worthy sport. I like this impression of him. His entire purpose of manipulation, torture, all the horrors that Xenos is committing as Viceroy are essentially just to breed the perfect enemy. That's what he wants. He wants to sow discord, hate, depression, desperation, misery, just absolute horror to everybody who he is under him, in order to force them to generate this particular counter to himself. Only through this hardship does he believe he will find a worthy quarry in order to pursue in what he calls the hunt. I like this. This is cool. It's not the first time it's been done, but it's a great twist on, I just want power. It's a far more interesting effect of that, because he's actually, and so far in the story at least, he's letting us win. Now, he's letting us win because he wants to inspire hope, and hope is what gives the charge to eventually give rise to a champion who might be worthy of his attention. He very much reminds me, and I've been doing some research on it, I can't find anything, but this might be obscure, but he reminds me very much of the main character of the film Ichi the Killer. A movie that was banned in several countries for many years, but by today's standards, it's not that bad. I think it's called Kikihari, is the main character there, and he reminds me very much of him, and I wonder if they drew inspiration from that character. And I'm kind of curious, is in the future of Xenos, will we find some sort of sadomasochistic partnership with his mentor, the Emperor, his father, whatever that might be, in order to generate a creature such as him. But he's also drawing power from somewhere. I have to believe it's the Asians. He is not au natural, let's put it that way. He's either juicing hardcore, or he's drawing power from somewhere else to be as powerful he is. The only letdown I've actually had with Xenos is actually fighting Xenos, and I think they could have done such a better job here of making him intimidating. I fought him twice, and both times he's extraordinarily slow, and he throws various mechanics out, but they're very easy to avoid. And essentially, you feel like I could fight this guy all day, and then he has an I win button whenever he feels it's necessary. I would have much preferred to have somebody who was legitimately kicking my ass, but maybe I get the odd shot in, something like that, where he's like, okay, maybe you're the one, but you're nothing compared to me. And I don't get that impression from the gameplay element. I would have preferred something like Metal Gear Revengeance, where Raiden fights Sam at the beginning of the game, and Sam is just so overwhelmingly better that you can't get a shot in, and then Raiden has to go through his journey in order to inevitably fight Sam much later in the game, where they're more on a par with each other. You need to become stronger. You need to become better in order to fight against this guy who is overwhelmingly superior to you in every single possible way. But I did not get that impression from the gameplay of Xenos at all. It was super, super easy, and you hit him with everything. In fact, you're winning. His health is depleting, and then he has an I win button to get rid of you, which was a little like, we could do something better with him. I'm ultimately very, very engaged in what his end game is, because right now, all our battles against the Empire are really easy. Like, really, really easy. We squash them at every possible turn. They have very limited forces, and I have to believe that's because Xenos wants it that way. He actually doesn't care. He doesn't care if his own soldiers die. He doesn't care if you murder half the Empire. He just wants his sport. And if allowing you to gain some victory and gain some momentum, and then to probably kill off somebody to really get that burning hatred that you might need to fight him, that's where I hope they're going with this story. So, fingers crossed that Xenos' master plan is something along those lines. It would be fantastic to see that pay off. We can't go too long without talking about Yotsuyu. I was very freaked out by this. In fact, in general, as a streamer, I'm very weirded out when any woman appears who is slim and in a nice dress, and everybody instantly is in love. Despite the absolute sadistic, genocidal tendencies that character might have, that makes them the most dislikable person on earth, and everybody's spamming, will she please step on me? I just want to feel her feet on my face.
My appetite for your agony is as an abyss, bottomless, insatiable. Before you die, you will cry and beg and prostrate yourself upon the earth. You will crawl on your belly through the muck and the piss and debase yourself for my amusement. All of you.
And I was very creeped out until, of course, I found out that it's endorsed by the Lord and Master Yoshi P.
Step on me, please.
In which case, who am I to argue with this? But I kind of like Yotsuyu as well. I'm very wary of how far they can go with this character. Again, we're fully aware that we're in spoiler territory here because this is years old content. Yotsuyu has just died. Off screen. Off screen. In fact, one of my criticisms at this point would probably be they seem to be getting a little afraid of killing off characters, which I hope doesn't continue, because one of the cool things about FF14 that I've had so far is that they aren't that afraid to kill off potentially beloved characters like Minfilia, who I still think is coming back, Papalimo, and other characters who they've killed off. Ida, technically, I suppose. But they've had Gosetsu and Yotsuyu die off screen. I kind of don't believe it, and the reason I don't believe that is because of what happened with Ishtola. Ishtola should have died, and I love Ishtola. Like, I love that character a lot, but Zeno should have fucking killed Ishtola. She should have been cut completely in half. She should be dead. And they didn't. They were like, oh, she's fine. And I hope they're not going down this trend of we can only kill off low-bearing characters because the fan service is too strong. It's a very awkward place to put your story because it lowers the risks. It lowers the scale. I don't want to change my current point of view that I certainly had after Heaven's Ward, is that these characters could die at any time. It could legitimately happen, and that once they're dead, they're dead. We've seen that with several characters. It's why people still pray for Horshafon and whatever. He was a good character and he died off. We've had Scions die. We've had Moonbreeder die. Kryl is currently taken from us, and it is in some sort of machine. So Giga Kryl is probably on her way. But I hope they don't go down that stream of like, well, we can't kill... It kind of is the Sylvanas problem. It's like, we can't kill her off. People love that character. It's like, well, that's how you build a legacy. Otherwise, you end up with this horrible scenario where eventually they outstay their welcome. And that brings us nicely back to Yotsuyu. She's a pure sadist. Her introduction into the game is really cool as a purely evil character, but they can't run too far with that, which is why I was kind of okay with Yotsuyu dying. It's not dead. It's totally not dead. Because how far can you go with a sadist? However, I will say, in the overall story, I've talked a little bit about the characters. I do want to talk about Lise a little bit, and Mefrid dying, but more importantly, I was a little taken aback that they didn't go where I thought they were going to go with the Yotsuyu character. Not to say my narrative is better by any means, but I do feel like they did that character dirty, which is also one of the reasons that I think she's not dead, is that there's a really great scene with Xenos and Yotsuyu after she's failed. And he punishes her, but he then gives her a command to go back and make it right. And then I instantly knew, as this happened, is that Xenos really likes this. And it was for the reasons we just talked about, is that Xenos wants them to have hope, because that's going to make his end goal better. He wants the people to have some victories. He's happy with that because they're going to build that momentum. And then he can once they gain more, he can take more away from them in order to fire this hatred up. And so he gives Yotsuyu the command to go back. Now he's giving somebody who is a pure sadist, who is just purely evil, this okay to go and be as horrible as you possibly can. And to go and just inflict untold misery upon the people of Doma. And she doesn't. And I was really surprised by that. In fact, the way they went with it is, and she's dead now. And in fact, there's even a comment at some point in the game, and I doubt Chris can find it.
Have you met me?
Where they're like, the Imperials don't seem to be doing anything. And I think it's a conversation you're having with Alice, is they're out checking the base, and Alice is like, they don't seem to be doing anything. And I was like, yeah. I was fully expecting to come back to Doma after doing the Azim step, that Yotsuyu would have gone and had them doing some horrible things. I mean, their first introduction is having a child try and kill his parents and kill his best friend. And so it was really intriguing to me, especially as a fan of Dark and Macabre, as to see where that would go. And it didn't go anywhere. So I was like, oh, okay, fine, all right. Feels like a missed opportunity to me, but maybe that was my dark and macabre side who was like, this is going to be so good. People are going to be so tortured. Yay! Which is kind of how I felt about it at the time. But moving on then. So in terms of the zones, little bare bones, I did not particularly like... The first zone, I forget the name of it now, which is the swimming zone. The swimming zone felt weird. The music was like being in a circus. Now, it's obviously designed because it's an underwater zone, which I did not know. In fact, I found the zone very frustrating until I could learn underwater swimming from the Zoljin. But it felt wrong. Like, the whole zone was just spread out, and I was like, surely we're going to get a boat or something like that. It felt like they were designing it for something. I didn't think it was an underwater world. I thought they were just going to give us our own little boat to go around in. That would have been cool. But until then, the zone felt really out of place. Not inescapable at this point is to talk about the Confederacy. I hate these characters so much, and they feel so out of place in a Final Fantasy XIV story. And I've seen a lot of defense, because obviously I spoke about this with our viewers, and I disagree massively that the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, the people who founded the Crystal Braves, the people who fight for Eorzea and for the righteous and the good, regardless of political affiliation, etc., would side themselves with pirates who are absolute arseholes. They are complete, toothless arseholes. And it frustrated me to no end. There's a scene in their main base where they're just beating the shit out of civilians. And they're threatening to cut their arms off. And we help. We're like, yeah, okay. Let's make this work so you can continue to be these people. And put against, like, the Imperials, they're like, we can't even fight them. Like, they don't want anything to do with anything because they're just going to lose. And we're rubbish and we can't do it. But please play as the Ruby Tithe so we can continue to rob people. And the basis for all this is, well, it's been like this forever. So, fuck you. Like, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, I would know, would be like, what are you doing? Yeah, it's been like this forever, but it doesn't mean it's right. You're thugs. You're awful people. Yeah, you've got problems with the Empire, but, like, who fucking cares? Everybody's got problems with the Empire. They've literally been dominating this area for, like, 25 years, dude. You guys are dicks. And I know, I mean, the only reconciliation I have is, like, well, we need help in this new world. We have no friends. We have nothing. So we do need some form of help. So I'm kind of hoping at the end of the MSQ, we go back and we either disband or deal with the Confederacy, because they absolutely should not be somebody we're dealing with in any way, shape, or form. Desperate times, desperate measures. Okay, I can allow that to slide, but these people are just dicks. They're absolute dicks. They're just terrible people, and I don't want anything to fucking do with them whatsoever. And every quest involving the Confederacy, I really felt uncomfortable. I was like, I don't like this at all. But, having said that, I did encounter the first people who I had, like, ideological differences with, to the point that it also made me uncomfortable. That would be the Azim Steppe, which so far has been my best zone. The Mongolian inspiration there was very apparent. I really liked the different tribes and how they worked. We had I'm going to get some of these names wrong, I'm sure, but Arthinians, who are, you know, they're the more bully militaristic types who have power and they want to maintain power. Of course, there's always a tribe like that. We have I forget the name of them, the Wandering Tribe, who you side with. The Mol, who are the peace-loving. They're peace-loving. They don't mind sifting through shit, which we'll get to in a second, for damn sure. But they're nice people. They're good. They're the peace-loving people. They don't want power. They're quite happy. They know that they're not fighters. They don't want to be fighters. They have to take part in the Nadam, but because that's the rule of the land, but they're not intending to win or anything like that. In fact, to them, it feels like they're just sending people to sacrifice. But it's nice that Lord Hien, they're what peace gives people a chance, right? And that's a great message that comes out through that, is through peace and through caring about other people, they brought in Lord Hien, which eventually brings in the Scions and the Warrior of Light and things like that. Who will fight for them and defend these people and give them purpose, because they're good people. I like that. That was very cool. The Dorthal, on the other hand, fuck those guys. Oh my god, like, the more I thought about the Dorthal, the more uncomfortable I got, because fuck those guys, man. The Dorthal's belief system that when you die, you're reincarnated into another person who is already born. And they just tell that baby, You're Greg now. Greg has lived 5 times. Greg is the best swordsman ever. You're Greg now.
Come on, Greg.
You don't know it. You're going to have to learn to be Greg. I hated that. Is that they just pick and choose whoever they want people's babies to become these people who have lived in the past and they don't get to live their own lives. And we do encounter when you're doing the Ether Current quests, people who just aren't living up to those expectations. They've been told they're Greg, that they're one of the best swordsmen that ever lived, and they're outside and they're like, I can't even fucking hold a sword properly. I've got bad arms, I've got arthritis, like, I can't do this. And you go and ask the people, like, yeah, they'll learn, because they're Greg. We decided that off the list. We went, you're Greg. And you just have to deal with that for the rest of your life, and that's the way it's going to be. Although at the same time, they have the ideological differences with Gosetsu, who's like, I can see there's a logic to it. I can see what they're saying in their beliefs, in what they believe. This makes sense. I don't agree with it, which is how I felt. I was like, I don't want anything to do with you guys, like, at all. I don't. You guys do you. Whatever you believe is fine. But it actually made me a little bit like, oh god, this place is creepy, like almost cult-like. Reminded that movie Midsummer with Florence Pugh, where it's like, okay, you know, I know that turns into like a horrific nightmare, but you know, that's just following their beliefs. Okay, it's just not something I want anything to do with. Although the Nardam was an excellent storyline. I thought that was very cool. Let's talk about Lise a little bit. So Lise is the main character of Stormblood, which is hard because I mentioned in the last video, Lise is a brand new character, or kind of. Lise has been with us since A Realm Reborn. But she's always had this backup with Papalymo, who's been protecting her and looking after her and been her sort of guiding light in her childlike decisions. And it always kind of bothered me that Ida was, she seemed out of place. She didn't seem like she belonged, which is great because they obviously capitalized on that with the formation of Lise. Ida just seemed to be along for the ride. She's a good fighter. That is undoubtable. But in terms of having the wisdom that seems to come along, all the members of the Scions are not only good fighters, right? I mean, they're all good fighters, but they bring something else to the table. They bring something that is a speciality, almost like a heist team. And what did Ida bring? Nothing, really. Now that makes sense. So, in that regard, it's fine. But that doesn't mean that Lise hasn't been through everything the Scions have been through, and she should have picked up some stuff along the way. She spent quite a long time in Little Alamigo dealing with rebellion and oppressed people, and the sort of inspiration for them to do better with Papalymo guiding her on her way and doing things like that. So she's had some experience with this before, which is why it was really kind of daunting as how unaware that character is of why people who have been downtrodden and murdered and butchered and made to suffer untold horror aren't just fighting back all the time. Now, you can look at it and say that, yeah, but when I was a Scion, if someone was a bad guy, we just beat the shit out of them and we dealt with it. It was like, that's how we deal with it. You're a bad guy, so here we come. We're going to kick you in the fucking balls. But she has had some experience with that in Little Alamigo. And they are fighting back, which is what she wants to do. So it does make sense, but she's so childlike. In order to move her up very quickly, it's hard. It's hard to get along with because she just makes so many mistakes. And even spending some time in the company of the Scions, which she's obviously done for a very long time now, literally years, she should know better. And she spent time with Alphino and Alice and Urianger and Papalymo and Minfilia and the Warrior of Light and Moonbreeder and all these characters, and even Thancred, who will bestow some of that maturity and wisdom and knowledge and diplomacy across the board. She will have naturally been around the decisions like that. Even when she did in A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Well put forward like terrible decisions, she was corrected on it and explained how it worked, and it all worked out. So it was a little strange for her to be so struck back by her people not being able to fight back, or not even having the will or the hope to even defend themselves. That is changing, though. I don't hate Lise. I did hate Lise. I actually detested that character, because every time she opened her mouth, it was fucking stupid. Like, ultimately stupid, that even the average person knows that this is just not... It's very easy to empathize with these people, even if you've never experienced it. And to understand their plight. Let's put it that way. Elise just couldn't. And it was like, this is just frustrating because everything she's saying is fucking stupid. And it's like she wants to just... It's like she's hopped up on lemonade all the time. She's like dizzy on sugar, trying to get through these things. But that is changing, which is nice. I kind of wonder what they're going to do with Lise. I don't think they're going to kill her off, but it's a very Lise-centric story. And we do have a lot of moments in the overall MSQ where they kind of build somebody up very quickly, like they did with Mefrid, in order to knock them down immediately. I'm very, very skeptical every time Final Fantasy XIV takes me to the side to have a little conversation with someone. So we had moments like that with Yugiri, where it's like, oh, I'm stood out at the beach and I need a conversation. And we had several moments with this with Lise as well. And every time somebody gets that big monologue dump, likelihood is they're gonna fucking die or something horrible's about to happen to them. Like that happens pretty regularly. They're not subtle about that kind of stuff in any way. I remember in the Rising Stones, before the fall of the Crystal Braves, there was one scene in A Realm Reborn where suddenly everybody had to leave. Like Philomene, like half of the Rising Stones had to leave, and they were all like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go over there now." And it was like, this place just suddenly got very empty. And then it's like, oh, this place is about to be attacked. Like, unquestionably, and there's certain characters that they don't want to be here. I will say Stormblood is much more egregious with that stuff. So let's get to the negatives a little bit. Some overall positives, though. I liked the Zul'jin. I thought they were very cool. Certainly compared to what I've dealt with the Confederacy. I like the swimming mechanics. The zones overall are a mixed bag. They're very plain. It depends on the story that takes place inside, but in terms of zones, occasionally there's some nice things. I haven't seen the raid yet. The dungeons, they've really found their pacing with the dungeons, and I hope they continue it. The dungeons overall in Stormblood, I really enjoy the pacing and the environmental shifts that they do there. I haven't really been bored in them. Only 2 primals, which has been great, really great, but that does lead us, the first one we fight is the Zul'jin primal, which was very awesome. I was not expecting it at all, and I think that's great. I was expecting a primal, but like in Heaven's War, they have Bismarck fly past, and you're like, oh, there's a primal, and we're going to deal with that later. And you know about Ravana. Not how cool Ravana is, but you know about Ravana before you get there. This time around, though, it was complete surprise. As soon as you get to that camp with the Zul'jin, and you get the final relic, and then it's like, what's happening? It's like, oh shit, a primal's coming. Oh fuck. And then it's like, oh, the Warrior of Light's like accidentally summoned yet another primal, which we just seemingly end up doing. We're almost as bad as Sid for approaching things that are better left alone, fucking with it, and then having to close it again after. Like, every situation with Sid is that way, pretty much. It's like, here's this really interesting thing that's protected by like tons of barriers and things. I bet we can open it. Yeah, but should we? Because it's like actually fine right now. Nothing's happening with it. It's like really interested to see what's inside though. Oh, it's the end of the world. Okay, and now we have to fight tooth and nail and murder in order to close it back up to its original state. But now it's even worse because the defenses that were originally in place that held for 10,000 years, we've destroyed. So more fool us. So let's talk a little about the negatives. So the story is really paced kind of horribly, I would say. It has these really fantastic moments. They did a much better job with the juices this time. It's like taking the bridge, storming the castle. All that stuff is not only visually great, but interesting. Really interesting is the scenarios they set up. The fall of Raelga's Reach is a really cool moment. It's a great set piece, and they did even better with that. And then for some reason, in between that, they put the most annoyingly frustrating, mundane MMO bullshit that I've seen yet in Final Fantasy XIV. And one of the cool things is they kind of strayed away from that. Certainly in Heavensward, it was still there a little bit. But here, it's pretty regularly, including the aforementioned go and put your hands and find the shit quest, which is a meme even in World of Warcraft because it's like, it's just so dumb that the Warrior of Light or the Champion of Azeroth would be doing this. And it happens a lot in Stormblood. Is you'll just get to a place, it's like, right, now you need to go and find my sheep. And they fall into this usual trap, and in fact, I think it's Alice who points out how stupid it is that every time we get to a place, we need to do some really mundane, menial tasks to earn their affection. And it's kind of okay to address it, like fourth wall break it, and be like, yeah, okay, we do have to do this, but then not to kind of say, well, actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something that the Scions would do, and we're going to maybe look for a bigger threat, or we're going to address something else, rather than picking up tomatoes, or finding somebody's recipe book, or asking people about their day, or seeing whether the cook needs to get some more meat, and things like that. And it really took me out of it, because this pacing is so stop-start. It is so stop-start that it drags you out of it. And I know if, for me, honestly, if I'm like in full chit-chat mode with my audience, I feel like the story's taken a bad turn because I didn't have that in Heaven's Ward, and it was a better experience for it. As weird as it is as a streamer to say like, oh, not having this like extended chit-chat time with my audience is bad, it's because we were so engrossed in moment to moment, and instead of having chit-chat time about day-to-day things, it was more a case of let's talk about that last cutscene and the implications it had and where this could go from here and what is Justinian doing now. I wonder where this character is. What are the knock-on effects? What are the potential outcomes of what comes from here? And I was having that. That's why I was talking about Yotsuyu earlier, is I was having that experience where I was like, okay, so Xenos has like punished her, but not because he actually cares, because he wants to inspire her to go and do these horrible things. So this is what she's going to go and do. But far too often in Stormblood, it was like, oh, okay, I've got like 5 quests which involve going and picking up cabbages and things like that. Or running around a building, looking for sheep or whatever it might be. Which is whatever. So yeah, that's been a bit of a drag. The other thing is the excessive use of MacGuffins. Now, some of you probably don't know what I mean by a MacGuffin. But a MacGuffin is a plot tool that stories use when they've kind of hit a roadblock and they need to overcome. Now, often it's used because they've made a character way too strong and you can't win. So then, ta-da! There's a MacGuffin. There's the crystal. There's the fucking scepter. There's the magic that just suddenly appears that you had no idea about, and it solves all your problems for you. Or it's, you know, it's some sort of weird solves everything Deus Ex Machina type device that you're going to go and find. It's called a MacGuffin, right? You have this MacGuffin. The one that was the most jarring to me was finding the Zul'jin relic. This was such bad storytelling, it actually like made me annoyed. And the concept is that the Zul'jin have been missing this relic for an extremely long time. It's lost somewhere in the ocean. They've been scouring the ocean floor for all these years, systematically, zone by zone, to find this thing that's precious to their people, that's sealed in this vault on this island, the other 2 relics and all this stuff. And you find it in 5 minutes. And not only that, you find it by going to the village next door to the Zul'jin home. And they're like, yeah, there's a flashlight that detects that exact type of stuff. We use it all the time for mining. And you should probably just go to the one sector or whatever it is that they haven't searched with the special flashlight. And then you go there and it's like, it's right on the floor. So fucking stupid. And I was angry. I was like, this is terrible. This is so cheap and so stupid. That this is what you've come up with. Like, this is some weak storytelling. So which we then went and looked, and they did divide the storytelling up into 2 separate writers. Now, I'm sure they had some collaboration, and I don't know the ins and outs of it. But you can tell that there's like certain things that they were trying to get to connect, and it's not the first time I've experienced this, and this goes back to my WoW days, is we've had raid tiers that were clearly divided into 2 different teams because they don't mesh. The synergy's not there that you would get with one cohesive team talking about the problems and issues that would happen if you would do X, Y, and Z, and instead you ended up doing A, B, F, G because you missed out on E, and you need to have that full string in order to make it work. And the use of things like these silly MacGuffins is so stand out because Heaven's Ward has none of that. Now, I'm not going to deny Heaven's Ward is such a tough act to follow. It really is. And Stormblood is not there for me quite yet. It's really not there. But it has the potential to get there because I do recall the first half of Heaven's Ward was just exposition upon exposition upon exposition in order to put all the pieces in place for the ultimate grand finale. Which worked out super well by the end of it. Once you had a firm grasp on everything that was going on, it was great. Alamigo is not something we haven't heard about in the past. I'm actually surprised Alamigo, or in fact Doma, isn't in a worse state based on what Yugiri tells us when she, in the Realm Reborn, where Yugiri arrives, and she's like, yeah, everything's destroyed and stuff, but maybe I read too much into that. I was actually expecting it to be way worse than people who have villages, they're growing their own food, they're keeping themselves to themselves. I did like that the villagers were like, go the fuck away. Go away. We don't want you here. Like, Gosetsu, this massive general returns, and they're like, leave. You don't know what happens. Like, I love that. I think Stormblood is at its prime, where it's really stressing is like how hard these people have had it, and what people who are now fully devoid of hope look like. and would talk like, and you might turn up as the savior of the universe, and they're like, go away. For real, go away. And I think the greatest moment of that is watching the Skulls beat down a merchant who is just providing them with their weekly payments. And you, as the Warrior of Light, and Lise, are told to just let it happen. And this is one of the better moments with Lise, which is like, why? We are the fucking Scions. We can go over there and we will butcher every one of these people. We will beat them to death. No problem. We do it all the time. And the civilian is telling you no, because it's not just him. He can take that beating and he will still get to go home. But if you interfere, if you stop them from beating this innocent man, they will come back for his family, they will come back for the village, they will come back for the elders of the village next door, they will come for their fucking dogs, and they will come for their cats. They will come for everybody, because their retribution is not equal. It's never been equal. That's how they maintain order, is they are allowed to beat this one man and he will still get to go home. Or perhaps he won't. But the village will survive. And if you interfere, that's not... You need to understand the repercussions of what you deal with. It would have been nice to have seen... I haven't seen it yet. It would have been nice to have seen that actually in action, which is where I thought Yotsuyu's character was going, is the immeasured response. So that's where we're up to so far. That's where we're at. I'm sure there's a million things I could have mentioned, but obviously I've been talking for a while now. But oh boy, stay tuned. So there you have it. That's how I felt about the MSQ up until this point. This is half of the main story. Now, many of you will know, if you watch my live stream, I have at this point of recording finished the MSQ. I do know how a lot of the stuff we talked about today resolves. I'm aware of that. However, thankfully, we do have our wonderful Bex who jots down and I make notes of everything I feel at the time after we're doing a stream, so I can get an accurate snapshot of how I felt at the time in order to convey it over to you guys. Now, obviously, the entire MSQ is too big to do in one video, and obviously I didn't even feel physically up to it, but we do know how that works. And in the next video, we're going to talk about the conclusion of that story in Alamigo and how it finished up, because Stormblood is like, it's amazing. Why did you do that? But either way, remember, get your stuff in. Check down below for the Razor giveaway. Please, I want to give this to one of you guys because he's an absolute monster. So thankful for Scan for working with us after all these years. And I'll see you in the next video, hopefully feeling much better. Bye, guys.